Hey guys, welcome back to Fake Nerds Watch. This time we're talking about Invincible, not doing a episode by episode recap, just a season long recap. Something I think we're all maybe regretting at this point because I think we all like the show a lot. Hey guys, I'm Ryan. This is Sparks. We got Ben and Brandon on the line, and we're here to talk about Robert Kirkman's Invincible, based off the comic that ran for 15 years. It's a really long comic, and this show is probably going to go on for just as long because look at The Walking Dead, same thing. What's your initial thoughts, guys? I think this is a pretty positive show overall for people around the world. I'm curious what you have to say. Spoilers, I think it rules.
I also think it rules.
Okay.
Ben,
I'm just gonna wait because there have been times where I'm about to talk and then Sparks talks and then I just stay quiet. No, this show is rad. This show is really good and bloody, very bloody. Buckets of the stuff everywhere.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is the best current, like modern, past decade to current superhero animated show, easily.
Yeah, I mean, man, the competition I don't think is super.
It's not, but it's definitely winning that competition.
I don't even like what even is there?
I mean, you could technically say all of the Disney Marvel animated shows that have come out in the past decade. So
oh my god, those are like that's like
Galaxy
man.
Avengers.
Sure, okay, they're not even the same.
Sure, well, none of them are going to be as like adult or mature.
No, so, I wouldn't even.
Young Justice is probably the closest.
I guess I didn't even think of that because I wouldn't even put that in the same like almost category. But I guess so. Yeah, it is an animated superhero show.
Superhero show, yeah.
This is the best superhero animated show ever made. How about that? Take that, pow! I'm just kidding. No, it's not. Not yet.
I think something that Robert Kirkman did really well with the Walking Dead adaptation was, with the benefit of hindsight, even though Walking Dead was still going when the show was going, he took the opportunity in the show to change and what he felt was fixing plot lines within the show that he feels like weren't up to snuff in the comic, and having the comic be done with Invincible and the show, I think benefited him greatly, and I can definitely tell, having read a lot of that comic now.
Which comic?
Invincible.
Oh, have you read it like in a week?
I haven't read the whole thing yet, but
he got the whole first big compendium, the ones that come in like there are 3 compendiums that collect the whole series.
Oh, Brandon, you just spoiled the whole next 10 years for yourself.
No, because that's what's so great about it. That's what I'm getting about it. Yeah. He has been able to move things and shift things and change things and make things a lot better than with the benefit of hindsight and now in a more modern era. I think this show so far has benefited from it better than The Walking Dead has.
I think that Robert Kirkman is one of the better creative people for adaptations. I think all of his television adaptations, he's brought a lot of, in revisiting, I'm thinking better, and he's not so. It's impressive that he's not so sold to his own stuff that he can't imagine it in a different way, or he can't imagine how it would be improved, or he feels like he must be beholden to the original version. He's like, he is the best version of this interpretation can be different and the same. Yeah, it can be spiritually the same, and it can happen in different orders of events, or different character things can even happen. He's guided some of this with The Walking Dead, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, but he's done it on The Walking Dead. Depending on who you are, your mileage varies on how that worked out at which points. But he also did it with Outcast.
I watched that first season. That is. I never watched the second, but that is one of the most direct translations of an adaptation I've ever seen in my life. That first episode is straight up like the first issue of that comic, like beat for beat. It's impressive. So yeah, you're right. That dude cares about the adaptation, and it works.
And one of the things that I felt comfortable, especially reading the comic book, as far as I am, and again, I'm only on issue. I'm like a third of the way through that first compendium. There are things that happen in the show that I haven't read yet, and there are things that happen in the show that I have. Multiple moments in the show are taken from much further along in the comic than they, and I think that's really cool that he's like, maybe if we shift this and put this here, it creates a better kind of adaptation. We'll talk about it tomorrow, but I think Marc Millar is kind of the other end of that when he's a creative voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really. I don't know that there is any animated adaptations that even come close to like that kind of how they handle one-for-one translation that isn't anime. Anime is kind of all I can think of but anime is slavishly linear.
What about like
to whatever it's doing, except for a few things like Ghost in the Shell.
The only thing I can think of for like America is like Batman, like The Dark Knight Returns parts 1 and 2. That's a very, very faithful adaptation.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, DC did, but that's the only one because The Killing Joke is a third of new material.
And those ones always come with so much prestige attached to them that like you have to be slavishly true to the original
because it's such an important
you'll be strung up if you aren't. Same thing with Long Halloween that we're anticipating is probably another one of those cases.
Is that those adaptations are not written by the people who wrote the comics, and that makes Kirkman very different than something like that. He's one of the few people who goes back to his creations, his adaptations, and is a creative voice within the adaptation. That doesn't happen too often.
No, and he's very dedicated to doing that on all of his projects, and I think it is to the benefit of the projects, and I can't say that for everyone. I mean, let's see how we weigh out Legacy this week. But also, I'm thinking of another who I think benefited by coming on to their work was, is it Greg Pak who wrote Old Guard? Yeah, Old Guard.
Rick Remender.
Yes, Rick Remender. Rick Remender is another great one. Rick Remender being involved in Deadly Class.
Yeah, he wrote in Showran.
And Deadly Class was another one where he was willing to make some changes, bend the rules around how things happen, but the things that he felt were truly important happened the way they were supposed to.
Hundo.
So it definitely is a hit or miss about how good it can be for a project on having these creative voices behind it. But I'm really glad that Kirkman is one of those who, like Remender, like Greg Pak, who will go back and say, I did this well, I can do it better.
Yeah. And even revisit the material again, like Greg Pak just released a new Old Guard comic because he was inspired by the movie. Rucka, sorry. Rucka. Oh, let's forget Rucka.
I thought I had it wrong, but I just went with it.
I thought you were saying something else, but then the comedy and shit. Yeah, so, man, what I love about the show is they didn't know what kind of show it was at the get-go. And even the first episode, up until the last 10 minutes, you think it's a traditional superhero show. And what I love is, like, there were people who were like, hey, don't show this to your kids, please. I know what it looks like. And, like, there's some marketing that's not as violent as the marketing that we've seen. There are lighter ones. And I'm like, why did you even make this? I don't understand why some of these trailers don't have any violence in them.
It definitely always felt weird to me that, like, I would say that the standard look of the show is very much in the vein of, like, the Young Justice or the DC animated shows. It's very much in that vein, and then the violence happens, and the violence usually gets a little bit more of an animation budget applied to it, and all of a sudden it looks like Venture Brothers. And you're kind of getting both of those right next to each other. It's a little jarring almost, but the show makes it's part of it what it is.
I just watched a video about like one of these things. There were 2 animation studios that worked on this, and one of them had a much bigger budget, and it was during all the fight scenes. And it's very, very clear, but that's also a lot of anime is they use the budget on the big fight scenes. So like people are kind of used to talking heads in anime.
I do want to bring up real quickly because we did talk about a bit about The Walking Dead, and something we talked about the first 3 episodes on an episode of our podcast of the main show. I don't know how much we'll go back to that, but we didn't mention on that the Guardians of the Globe are all voiced by Walking Dead alums.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's fun.
I did not know that.
I know where you're going now.
I think like Ross Marquand, who is Red Skull in who also is Red Skull in Endgame.
I mean, he's in Walking Dead,
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Is like, so every single person on the Guardians of the Globe, the reason why, well, not the reason, but like it's really cool that like it's basically like Omni-Man killing Walking Dead characters.
Yeah,
for sure. Because you brought up Ross Marquand, I want to give him specific shout out because I thought that was really good casting, because we all know Ross Marquand's really good at impersonating other people's voices and their characters and things like that, which is why he was the Red Skull. But the way he combines Mantzoukas and Quinto into their own character is pretty impressive. I'm like, he literally sounds like both of them. That's incredible.
I figured it was one of them, or just both of them, and they did a weird thing. But yeah, getting a new actor who's just a really great impressionist definitely fooled all of us, or at least fooled me for like that first episode. And then we looked at it. Thankfully, that Amazon thing, you just pause it, tells you everybody's names. It's a great service. I love it. I used it a lot. Just a lot of famous people.
Every time I paused the show, it was just like, here's another famous person voicing this character. I'm like, man, this show's
the most
stacked.
Just to be sure that Ben,
Yeah.
you know who we're talking about, yeah? Rudy?
Rudy, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
teenage.
I thought it was God, I thought it was the guy who voiced Rex, or no, Rex Explosion first.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then,
Manzukis.
Yeah, I thought it was like Manzukis, but a more toned down Manzukis. And then I heard like a twinge of Zachary Quinto. I'm like, hold up, is it both of them? And they just mixed it together? What did they do to here?
They went to Ross Marquand and said, make a voice that sounds like both these people.
Okay.
And those are two very different voices. I mean,
You're right.
holy shit. Just the way that he was able to. Okay, so one of the things I absolutely love about the show is the payoff. Like all the payoffs for a bunch of the side stuff. Like when like at the end of the third episode, we see Robot busting the brothers out, and I'm scared thinking, oh shit.
Oh yeah, that did happen in the third episode.
Yeah, that was episode 3. And I'm thinking, oh no, is Robot a bad guy? Is he going all straight Terminator on us? What's going on? I want to say episode 5 is where he goes up, like phase 1 is underway. It's like, what the heck is that thing? I don't know what the heck that thing is.
He steals the blood from Rex, and you're like, that seems spooky. Why are you doing that, Robot Man?
That's some cynical. And then when he gets super when he's holding Monster Girl during the fight in Machine Head's office, just it's weird.
Oh man, heartbreaking. The Machine Head's office fight is one of the most heartbreaking fight sequences in that show.
So I was very as much as I was intrigued with Marc and him trying to do his powers, it's definitely one of those shows where I like all the subplots and the subtexts and everything else going on, like Marc with Amber, Omni-Man and Debbie fighting, Cecil doing his stuff, and Robot doing his thing. But
I love Cecil.
I love Cecil too. Walter Goggins, yes. But it's funny. One of the things I was more intrigued about Robot than I was about Marc and Amber. Now, don't get me wrong. I like the Marc and Amber stuff. I love that. But I was like, what's Robot doing?
Amber was race swapped in the animated show. She's Zazie Beetz in the animated show. In the comic, she's white. I just found that out. It was really weird.
And she's also like, all the female characters are so much better in the show than the comics. Like every single one of them.
The mom in the comic is so different.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's Robert Kirkman realizing like, oh, I did a disservice to all of my female characters. Let's amplify all of them, and now they're so much better in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yo, I love Adam Eve. She's
me too.
She's probably she is my favorite, or she's definitely one of my favorites.
One of the things that I really enjoy about the show is in the first episode when Omni-Man kills the Guardians of the Globe, it sets up stakes. It sets up very real stakes for this show. You know that at any minute, any one of these characters could die. And so when we get to episode 7, not to jump around too much, but when we get to episode 7, when Omni-Man is attacking Cecil and Cecil is distracting him, that's
my favorite fight, because it's not even a fight. That's the tensest I was the whole episode.
Me too.
Cecil teleporting and he grabs his tie right before that's the coolest shit I've ever seen in my life. It's like so simple and so cool.
But like I'm at the edge of my seat because I'm like, Cecil could die in the scene.
Yeah.
There's a version of the scene where Cecil doesn't make it out.
And it's super funny because, again, the comic of Invincible, it's not like the show where it's a mystery. It's a regular comic until something happens and then the comic changes. And then it's just a different comic. I really, really like the show and the way that it incorporates all of the stories. And now you've read, Brandon, the stuff with Robot doesn't happen till way later in the comics.
I'm not even
right?
there yet.
Like, it's crazy. The stuff from like issue 60 is in like episode 2. And it's the way
But I've also read things I've also read things in the comic that probably not gonna show up till like season 3.
Exactly. And it's him prioritizing what he thinks needs to happen now as opposed to happen later. Because I guess like in the grand scheme of things, it's all gonna still happen, right? The stuff that's super important, we're getting the foundations of, which is everything to do with space. And guys, like, not to go too far into like the future of like the show, man, but like, holy crap, like the Viltrumite War and the Invincible War and like multiverses and like this show is seeding the little things. And I'm like, but they're introducing it now. So I don't even know like what the next season really could be. Robert Kirkman on like one of his like Instagram live things, or whatever. He said Angstrom Levy, who is a villain from the comic, who is a big multiversal villain. He said he's in season 2. So
I just met him.
Yeah, I don't know, because that's like the biggest shit that could happen in a comic at the time, and it's happening like next season. I just don't know what they're gonna do with all this stuff, and it's so fascinating. And you're right, Brandon. As someone who's read a lot of the comic, it still feels fresh because it's all happening in such different ways.
It is the perfect thing. It's one of the. Okay, yeah, okay. It's the perfect example of what I call, as I say, is like when you do an adaptation, you don't necessarily want to be so slave to the source that you're just seeing the same beats play out over in the same way. You want to change stuff. You want to mix it up a bit. And Invincible, I think, is one of the pitch perfect examples of like this is how you would do it.
Go ahead.
When does Omni-Man kill Guardians of the Globe in the book?
That's in issue 4.
No, we read volume 1, Brandon.
We read issue 4.
You're right.
It's like in volume 3.
No, it's not. No, it is earlier because I didn't just read, but like 2 issues before I just read Omni-Man was revealed to have killed the Guardians of the Globe. And that happens about 10 issues after he kills them, or maybe 5 issues. It's kind of a jumble right now. Both stories are kind of melding in my head right now.
Doesn't happen early, like the first 2 volumes. It's definitely at least like issue like past issue 12.
It was early because it was earlier than a lot of people like said, because Kirkman said that that Image was like, you need to speed this story along because right now it's the sales were plateauing and it was on the verge of cancellation, and that's when Kirkman decided to reveal Omni-Man as the killer of the Guardians of the Globe, and then the sales like upticked.
Just bouncing off what Brandon was saying about adaptation, I think that this is a really great example, but it takes a knowledge, and I think something that most creators aren't good at. It takes a real willingness and knowledge, and I think like the other thing we're not giving enough credit to is that there's other writers on the show who are working with Kirkman, who are helping him to make this as strong as it is, which is another, again, like that's the great thing about Kirkman, is he's not the person who's like, I'm the only person who can handle it. Like, he's open to the advice of others, and I think that's a really key important part, because that's kind of the only way that you find out what's valuable that you're blind to, and what isn't valuable that you're blind to, because I think it's very easy to be, let's say, J.K. Rowling writing the Fantastic Beasts prequel films, right, and not understand what people like about Harry Potter, what's like really important to have in there, and what's actually really not important to be in there when you're handling an adaptation from something else. And I think it's really simple to screw that up and like lose something that's like, why isn't that there? Because we've had plenty of adaptations where we go and we're like, how does it not relate to this? How does it not have that specific thing? This is one of the most important things it could possibly have, and it's valuable to be a person who can recognize that. I think one of my favorite things that I want to spotlight, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, as far as the comic, but at least in the show, Omni-Man doesn't have heat vision. Doesn't use it, and I think that's really a great choice, because it's very easy to 1-for-1 him to Superman. But the fact that he doesn't use heat vision allows him to be a brawler, which I think is much more
visceral,
personal, and I think that's really effective, especially for the role that he plays. But the other thing I like about it is that it's moving just a step further away from that very like cliche imagery. Like, I think part of the problem is that Superman gets associated with the heat vision being a symbol of him being angry or villainous or dangerous, because people do frame Superman that way. But anyone who does a Superman anomaly or analogy is doing that when they're making them go bad. So that's the key demographic, and I'm really glad that Omni-Man doesn't do that.
It's like Homelander.
Or what's the
Hyperion?
No, what's the the boy goes bad. We watched this
Brightburn.
Real quickly, so it's at the end. It's towards the end of volume 2 of Invincible. Invincible issue 7 is when he kills the Guardians of the Globe.
Cool. Okay.
I just had to look that up. It was driving me crazy.
Something that is a little bit different. Like all the stuff that with like the murders and all the violence is all there. But the show is more brutal than the comic is. And I really think it's because of the Amazon and the boys. And I don't think it's not a negative, but the final brawl between Marc and Nolan,
Holy shit.
it is so much more violent than the comic. And in the comic, again, it's a change that I like, but in the comic, Nolan isn't as emotional. He is more like, I don't care about these people. This is a job to me.
Sure.
And then obviously, like, he does go cry off like he does in the show. Like that is still there. But I do like the change of him actually being having some confliction. Whereas in the comic, because it's just a flat page, you can't really read the emotion.
In the show when he says she's more like a pet to me, he's trying to convince himself.
Yeah.
And you can tell that he's trying to be like, no.
Because in the comic, that destroyed me because I believed every second of it. I truly believe, like, that's why this comic was so crazy at the time, because like this was supposed to be Superman and he literally like, I don't give a shit about my son or my wife, and he runs away. So like the fact that they change it here a little bit, or it's just the fact that, you know, the comic couldn't do what a show could.
What a voice actor like J.K. Simmons behind it can
exactly,
do. Yeah, exactly.
What a voice actor can do. Really compelling stuff, and like him flying off like with the tears like floating in his face, like
really good.
So compelling. Like, oh my god.
One of the things that I really, really enjoy about this show is its use of different characters, such as what's his name, Damien Darkblood.
Yeah.
I really like his inclusion in the show, and I don't mean to keep going to the comic, but it is so fresh in my mind. Robert Kirkman in the comic forgot about Damien Darkblood. There is a page where Damien Darkblood goes up and says, "Hey, I think Omni-Man killed the Guardians of the Globe," and everyone's like, "Yeah, we learned that like a year ago. Where have you been?" And where in the show he was a much more present force, and like immediately was like, I think this was Omni-Man. And even Cecil is like, if you're right, we're screwed.
Cecil might be my favorite character because
Walton Goggins is really great.
He's like my favorite. He's like the Coulson, like he's like the middleman. He's the guy who talks to everyone, but he has such like a hard.
He's the Fury.
He's the Fury. There you go.
Because he lies.
Yeah, he's so hard, and it's like that's what I want Nick Fury to be for real.
Sure.
Like the dude who will go do anything in his power to get the job done.
The Lightroom when it's just like season 2.
Yeah.
So good.
No, the scene that you guys were talking about him being Nick Fury, I love the scene with him and Omni-Man where he's just teleporting back and forth. And he's straight up, credit to Walton Goggins because he is just like the whole scene, cool, calm, and collected. And he's like, I'm a really good liar, but you're better at that.
Yeah.
You lied to me, to your wife, to your son. You lied to everyone. And you almost got away with it. Like that whole scene when he's just talking to Omni-Man, I'm like, I was like, please don't die, please don't die, please.
There's that scene and the scene with the tailor that also had me on the edge of my seat. I'm like, at any minute, this tailor could just like die.
If they were gonna kill him, I'd be pissed. But what I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, just don't kill off Walt. Normally, I want the government scumbags to die, but not this time. I'm like, no, keep Walton alive. Keep Cecil alive. I want to see more.
Especially when they kill his Coulson.
Yeah.
Oh, Bobby Hill.
Yeah.
Man.
That's Christopher. I can't pronounce his last name. But he was Steve Trevor in the Justice League War. He just like. When he's got his like spine ripped and he's just like, it's been an honor, and then the house explodes and it's just like, oh my god.
Not even that it was ripped, it was like you saw him reach in and then pinch it. It's
Jesus.
What you were saying about the violence, like even being more than the comic, I made reference to it being like Venture Brothers, and I can't think of a animated show like this that has that kind of violence in it.
Yeah.
That isn't Venture Brothers or Metalocalypse.
I was thinking Metalocalypse, but
Metalocalypse, I guess.
Doesn't get
but the thing is that like in both of those, and I think Metalocalypse, there's another step removed in how real they kind of look, or like the way they handle the animation, that the violence feels a little more cartoony than it does in Venture Brothers. Venture Brothers, you still kind of feel that violence a bit. But even in Venture Brothers, it's always used more or less to comedic effect. Even when it's violent, the reaction is supposed to be kind of like a funny,
like, oh my god,
shocking violence. And here, that exact kind of amount of violence is happening, but it's but it's brutal and it's not for fun. It's meant to, and I can't think of many animated shows that nail that.
Yeah.
And it is, I think, especially jarring and kind of smart that it looks like your standard Young Justice or DC animated show.
He's wearing
it's like, no, but also we're going to be unbelievably violent.
Yeah, there was something that I realized a couple episodes in where with all this violence, all this extreme violence, like it feels, for an animated show, it feels so real.
Yeah,
you feel the hits when someone gets punched. The show really makes you feel it. When someone gets their spine pinched out of their body, the show makes you feel it, and I think that's really cool.
When someone gets cut in half by a countertop.
Oh yeah, he pushes him over it. Oh my god.
Oh man.
No, man. Every action scene in this show is awesome. Like I'm thinking of like that scene, Ben, where Omni-Man's in his kitchen, and then like the Spectre dudes like show up, and they're like, "Are you serious? Like, what are you gonna do against Omni-Man? Give me a break!" Like, come on, guys. I felt so bad for them.
But they still gotta try.
The Hammer of Dawn, like the big satellite hammer, and he's like, he wouldn't. Oh, it's so good. So episodes 7 and 8 are like a 1-2 punch of like literally being like peak cinema, baby. Like, because like episode 7 is such like a thrill ride and that big fight and like the revelation and Marc's learning about the stuff, and the Immortal shows up again. There's that big fight, and then episode 8 starts with it raining blood and the Immortal dies again, and it's like it's I think it might be my favorite thing of the year, to be honest. Like I don't remember what else I've seen, but like in terms of TV shows, like 7 and 8, man, like I could not wait for 8 after I watched episode 7.
As we're talking about, we talked about how visceral the animation feels. Episode 8 has one of the most visceral things I've ever seen. Period. Which is Omni-Man holding Invincible as a train's coming. Holy shit!
Bro.
That was definitely one of the scenes that just made my stomach churn.
Did you see the meme? Did you see the meme of the Spider-Man train?
Yeah,
Spider-Man 2.
You want Spider-Man? You gotta go through us.
It's pretty good.
I didn't see that meme, but that scene seeing all the destruction that was going on in Chicago with Omni-Man fighting Invincible, but when
he catches out of the building.
Mm-hmm, but when he just holds his son's head, puts it in front of a train, and the train just all these people just dying left and right. I was just like, I actually felt uncomfortable watching that.
Yeah, no, it works. It's visceral, and it makes you feel like uneasy, and it's supposed to, because it's child abuse. This isn't a superhero show right now. This is child abuse. It's a father beating the shit out of his son. And it's not Batman fighting Superman. It's a dad beating the shit out of his son who can't fight back.
It's traumatizing.
It's traumatizing, especially the end where his son is the baseball flashback. Are you kidding me? Give me a break. Are you kidding me? Where he's holding up his son with his missing front teeth, and then it flashes back to his like almost dead son. That's cinema, baby. Call Martin. Get out of here.
There's so much with Omni-Man that I really like a lot. The fact that we get to see Omni-Man kind of unhinged throughout the show, as he's training Marc, as he's trying to keep the secret from his wife, as his wife is trying to realize what's happening, and he doesn't really know what to do with that information. He's like, I never wanted her to realize. There's the whole like in 15,000 years or 1,500 years, what are you going to have? And just Invincible saying, I'd have you, Dad.
I love you, Dad.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, good shit. And again, like this is all from the comic, but it's something that, again, great animation, great voice acting can really elevate like this material. And just like, I still have you, Dad, and JK's like, God damn it, and he's got to fly away because he can't handle the emotions because he's a toxic man. And I'm just like, dude, I cannot. This show is so successful because it's already got 2 more seasons. This show's going to run longer than The Walking Dead because I think it's better than The Walking Dead, the comic. I mean, the places this thing goes, like, I'm so happy for Robert Kirkman because like Walking Dead's good, but like he has another success that's just as good. Like that dude's really talented. He has like 5 comics out right now. They're all going to get made into movies, maybe. Like, just must be good to be that guy.
Oblivion Song has been optioned. I don't remember what it is as a show or a movie.
This is still going to be a movie.
And this is going to be a movie.
I don't know if they're going to want to.
I just don't know.
I don't know how you do it at this point.
So Brandon, I don't know how much I don't know if there's any of the side stuff collected in the first big omnibus, but like there's a bunch of side comic books of the Invincible universe. So like they really could do anything they want. There's 15 years and like a dozen spin-off comics that they can do anything from. Because I just don't see how you do the same thing again once you've done this. Like it would look cool.
It would never measure up.
It would look cool to see it like in live action, but yeah, it could not measure up.
It's one of those things where I was thinking about this while I was listening to it, entirely unrelated to this podcast.
Gardening.
And I mean entirely unrelated to Invincible.
Oh, got it.
And I was thinking about how in terms of adaptation, like, and I was thinking about Dragon Ball Z actually, and like I'd be happy to see a Dragon Ball Z live action movie, but I also have a caveat in my head where I'm like, I know, like they could put Thanos level budget behind Cell, and I will still think Cell looks better in the original show.
You just
Because that's the thing.
You just
like,
can't beat it.
You cannot beat, like there is no version of CGI animation that will make Cell look as good as he does in a show that was animated 20 years ago.
Yep.
As far as creating his personality.
And
it's just not.
In worst case scenario, they make it even worse and make it ugly. Or
Exactly.
Something. Yeah.
It'll just never ever happen.
Yeah.
And Invincible is a similar thing where like you will never be able to top something that was able to animate what the characters look like in the book. You're just never going to be able to do it. So I don't know why you
If
try.
we got like a movie trilogy that was just like a very, very basic, my dad's evil, he's from a space empire, like then the TV show came out, then I understand it. But we got the TV show first and it's perfect. It is a perfect adaptation. Like I have no problems with the show. It's like it's changes stuff from the comics for the better. Like there's nothing removed or changed that's worse, in my opinion. I don't know what you can do. You just make another big, I'm evil, son. Like, I don't think you can do it.
Yeah. I really enjoy the ending scene where Alan shows up and he's like, oh my god, Invincible! I need to tell you there's a Viltruman on your planet. There and the bit where it's like, what are you gonna do now? And it like does this flashback is like, here's potential threats for season 2 and 3.
And those are all people we've dealt with before, and they're all going to come back because everything matters.
I definitely understand that we had to do like season wrap-ups, so like because it's the end of the episode and there's a lot you got to sit with. I really hope, I haven't read the comic far enough, so I don't know, but I really hope that we see in the next season more of Marc sitting with the fact that what he just went through was traumatizing, like people being smashed against his own body and murdered. That needs to somewhat come up, I hope. I don't blame them for not covering it in this episode or addressing it heavily.
They did it just again because it is the end of the episode and the end of the season. So like the diner scene, we're like, well, this is awkward, isn't it? Like I guess like that's the scene.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It's in the amount that like he doesn't want to talk about it with anybody.
Yeah.
And I get that, but I'm like, he's almost rebounding in a like I'm ignoring it happy direction.
Yeah,
and I hope that that's something that comes back around. Like you can't just ignore it happy direction.
No, yeah,
you can't be that blindly optimistic about it.
No, I'm pretty sure
we'll see what the show does with that.
I mean, the show, from what I remember, has already addressed it even a little bit more by showing like Debbie crying and stuff like upstairs. So like, I hope the second season does.
Sure, I mean, like that's
that,
there, but I'm talking about his trauma specifically from being used as a weapon to murder people.
Yes.
Like
I will assume yes.
I assume so as well.
Yeah.
The other the one knock that I'd put against the show, and like I'm not blaming anybody. I'd rather have the show as it is than anything else. You definitely like we talked about in the 3 episodes discussion like that we did on Fake Nerd podcast, which is just there are scenes in animation where you feel that budget. Being pinched through, and like people are not expressive enough and things like that. And there's weird pacing things still throughout the season where I'm like, why? Weird gaps in people not talking, but there's nothing happening in the animation either. So there's nothing I can read in the face.
Yeah.
So it's just a pause. And all of those I wish were just a little tighter, and maybe they will be now. They'll put more money into it.
Yeah. Because again, I 100% agree. This is an hour-long animated show. So like, I watch 20-minute shows that don't look nearly half this good. So like, that is something where I definitely notice it, but if this were a 22-minute show, I'd feel more strongly about it.
For sure. It's just one of those things where like, you've got important character building moments, and sometimes I'm just like, man, I wish their faces could be more expressive. And the thing is, like, I'm comparing it against like moments where you have when Omni-Man has beaten Marc and he's doing his whole thing and everything. And I'm like, his face is hugely expressive. I'm like, where's this expression when we're having like quiet moments between him and his wife? I understand the semantics. It's just the kind of thing where I'm like, man, I want that too. I want the character moments to have expression in the face too.
On the budget there. So are you guys familiar with the anime Hellsing?
Yeah.
There and the original adaptation of Hellsing before the manga was finished cut a lot of corners in the animation. And so many times people are covering their mouths when they're talking.
Hey guys, we watched Evangelion where Gendo looks like this literally 50% of the time.
Now, and that's to cover the animation budget. I think Invincible does a better job than most modern day animations. We mention this all the time when there's a new Netflix anime, how the animation struggles in the faces. We because we're not using Japanese animation studios, we're using Korean, Chinese, whatever. Their faces struggle, and there's a lot of dead eye animation in American anime.
Let's be clear. This happens in Japanese studios too. Still, with different anime, this still happens.
No, I know. But I think Invincible does a better job than most hiding its budgetary constraints. I think even like the flying sequences, which is just they cut out a dude and are just putting in the thing. They still take the time to animate his hair, so you're hiding the fact that you've just cut out a dude. I think that this show, not perfect in covering that budgetary constraints, I think it does a better job than most.
I agree. I'm definitely focusing in on quiet character moments, like when he's talking to his wife, and it's a scene about like the tension building between them, and then there's a pause, and I'm like, man, I wish there was more I could read in the face. It's that kind of stuff where I wish that more budget was put towards putting expression on the faces in those scenes. I don't mind so much the like you're talking about the clip out fly guy.
That was just an example.
No, I get you. I'm just saying, like, where I care about it falling short is when it's quiet character moments that are left with languid pauses. I want more to be happening here.
Yeah.
I don't care so much in like in between things that you have to jump around budget. You jump around budget.
Ben, you were trying to say something as well.
Yeah, I remember this one part during, I want to say it was episode 7 or it could have been episode 8, where I noticed, it was the one time I really noticed the animation just dipped. I don't know, it could have been internet lagging for some reason, even though I watched the last few episodes on my TV downstairs right next to the modem. But it just, I want to say it was Marc Invincible being thrown at a bus, and it looked stupid. It looked like it was like he was like facing down one way and then instantly he was facing up. It didn't look like a fluid motion. It was what I'm getting at. I can't remember. I can't remember exactly where it was.
I ever had that problem.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It could have been my TV just lagging. I don't know. But
I don't. Go ahead.
I'm just saying it just did not look good. But to the show's credit, I remember seeing something and going, it was like poorly animated. And then 5 minutes later, I forget exactly what I was thinking of because this show was just that good.
Yeah.
There was just like one animation hiccup where I was like, I need to make a note of that. And then I was like, wait, what I need to make a note of? Oh,
I think it does help. What Ryan informed us all helps a lot in covering the budget, and covering the budget restraints for the fact that it is 2 animation studios.
And that is a big problem because it is a situation where like there's nothing they can do about it because it's literally a different studio handling that portion of animation, and like they don't work. So the budget, like,
so the great example is in the baseball scene.
Yeah.
The eyebrows and everything that happens on Omni-Man's face is like, that's all I want. I just want that in the other small, quiet character moments, and that clearly was the other studio.
Yes, it was.
It's 100%
it was the same
obvious.
scene. Yeah. And that studio is probably 100 times more expensive, and like that's just the reality of the show. But maybe now that the show is a big bomb success,
that's what I was getting at. Is I think that's the way to fix the problems that do plague American animation. Hire multiple studios to work on your shows. I mean, the first studio who did the quieter stuff probably should have had more of a budget too.
Yeah.
But I think having multiple studios share the load of doing these shows, unlike a Polygon doing an entire show or movie, or a Studio Mirror doing an entire show or movie, I think that would help spread the budget and eventually fix the problem that we are seeing in American animation.
Movies, Hollywood movies, or like special effects companies, like many, like a dozen will work on a movie at once. Like Avengers Endgame has like every special effects company known to man work on that movie. I'm like,
Three different special effects companies made Thanos.
there you go, yeah. But also that's like the greatest looking thing ever made. So like I get that. Budgets are budgets. Who's your favorite? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that the baseball scene. Did Omni-Man look even more jacked to you guys, or was that just me?
Big Vegeta energy. Big Vegeta energy right there.
Seriously, I'm watching this. I'm like, okay, I know it's been 17 years, but he's saying that Viltrumites age like the worst wine ever.
The slower, the older they get, the slower they age.
Yeah, but he is just like, did his muscles get bigger in this flashback, or is that's just how he sees himself? Because those are some pretty big ass muscles there.
Definitely, like they clearly were able to put so much more character work into the models. In fact, they put so much character work into Deborah, his wife, that I wouldn't have known she was the same character because they look so different. If it wasn't Sandra Oh talking and the context of the scene didn't make it clear that was her, because her character model looks so different. Mm-hmm. And that's a little bit of an issue between the two studios. It's like, yeah, Omni-Man came out fine, but that's because Omni-Man has a really distinct look. Mm-hmm. Deborah's is a little more.
Is it because it's 13 years earlier?
I mean, I can go with that. Look, like her haircut is different, but like I'm saying, like if you totally remove the context and you didn't have Sandra Oh's wife, I would not know off the bat of appearance. Like if you just said, if you just showed a picture of characters, like it's just a catalog of the characters from scenes, and here's Deborah in most of the show, and here's Deborah 13 years later, but they don't say anything. I don't know that I would know that was the same character on looking at it.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
You mentioned how Omni-Man has a really distinct look. It's always so funny to me when they talk about Omni-Man's secret identity, because I'm like, how does nobody know?
Well, because then when like William, like the best friend, or like Adam Eve is like, oh yeah, now I see it. Like, duh, of course. Like it looks exactly like him. It's like one of the Superman things.
Such a distinct mustache, the gray temples. Like he does not change his appearance at all when he's Nolan Grayson. It is just they're even glasses.
Those comic book things
I think that's meant to be a funny aside, because they don't bring it up a lot. I think it is meant to be kind of a joke that he has a secret identity.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely like. I don't know if I saw a guy who looked at him, I wouldn't immediately just assume, oh, that's the strongest person in the universe. Like,
I think the other thing is that like that's a very standard look.
A white guy with a mustache
of like that's our friend Michael in like 8 more years. He's
he's got the big guns outside of a baseball.
Like that's what he'll look like. He won't have a mustache because he'll never just have a mustache. He'll have a beard, but that's what he would look like.
Hashtag Michael for Omni-Man.
There you go.
But I mean, like it's a pretty common style look, so I can kind of get with him getting away with it. The other thing is like, who gives a shit? In the sense of like him in the world, like why would he care? Who cares? And who would screw with him? Oh no, I'm Omni-Man. What does that mean? Don't screw with me.
You're gonna blackmail him?
But I do think, on the note of secret identities, what I think is handled particularly well, because the whole time you and I were sitting there like, so CW, good lord, just tell her you're invincible. Yeah. You're making it so much worse. And I'm really glad that they had the thing where Amber's like, nah, dude, come on, I figured it out. I knew you were a hero. And I'm like, you know what? That would make sense, because honestly, that would be the logical assumption with the amount of superheroes in the world. Mm-hmm. That would make the most sense to assume this is a pretty good dude. Why does he disappear at these specific things? Probably a superhero.
Especially
you wouldn't jump to Invincible, but you'd be like, he's a superhero.
And then you go to that college campus, and then he disappears immediately, and Invincible's there. And then what? Come on, bro. You're not even trying anymore.
I really like the twist that she was mad that he lied, that he didn't trust her to tell her. I like that.
And yes, I love it.
I think that's super important, because like I think the concept of the secret identity has kind of worn out its welcome in most cases in comic book stories, and I think that there's a good room, not that Invincible is specifically tackling it, not that I really want a project to specifically tackle this thing, but I think there is a good room for conversation of the fact of like, if you are thinking about it and you have a romantic partner of, let's say, more than like 3 months, even as teenagers, maybe even especially as teenagers, and you're not telling them the truth about what you're doing, doing.
Yeah.
Sure, you're protecting them and you're really covering your own ass so that your identity isn't spoiled if the relationship goes south, which is somewhat logical, but at the same time, you are creating like complexes and emotional abuse traumas that you're not even aware of,
And
by putting
barriers.
someone through that. Yeah. That can make a person like doubt themselves,
Yeah.
can make a person like, I'm really glad that there's room for that to just be like Amber being like, yo, I'm pissed that you didn't tell me, like I figured it out, like just trust them, because like they're not that stupid, especially in a world where superheroes exist. They're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
It's always, or just don't be in a relationship if you want to be that responsible.
True.
Ben, you were going to say something?
Lost it.
All right. I wanted to talk a little bit about Adam Eve. I really like her character in the show. You know, she's voiced by Gillian Jacobs, who plays Britta on Community. There is a moment that I look, if it's not a callback to Community, then I got egg on my face. But I like to think it is, because there's a bit in the diner at the end of the episode where she says, I guess you guys should know that I'm Adam Eve. And they're like, who's that? And it feels like a dig at, because Britta was the butt of many jokes on Community. It does feel like a bit of a dig there. And I hope so. My Community loving heart hopes so.
Could be.
We'll never know.
Never gonna know.
I really liked her in the show, though. I think she's
No,
great.
I really like her too. In fact, she and a combination of Falcon and the Winter Soldier have very much affected my readings on Jupiter's Legacy this week, which we'll talk about on Fake Nerd Podcast. But the way that Adam Eve specifically affects it is in her absolute willingness to just be like, I can just do things with my powers. Why am I can just go fix stuff.
Yeah.
What am I doing? Like, I think that's so great,
Like,
especially with her
screw
power.
all
She's
of
like,
this stuff.
whoa. Why am I holding myself back from helping people in a real way? What the hell am I doing? Just going and doing it.
Just constantly like manifesting the door and making the door disappear in her own house, making her parents mad. Always funny. Great parents, as in like not great parents as in like realistic, like shitty parents, but like a good interpretation of that. Like we just want you to be normal, like a regular kid. Like, what does that mean? I could create a planet if I wanted to. Like I'm a god. She's like Dr. Manhattan. She can do whatever she wants. It's crazy.
She's got great powers.
Great powers. She has a cool treehouse, man.
Yeah, I think she benefits a lot from the hindsight that Robert Kirkman is bringing to the show. She and the mom, I think, benefit the most. I also really like Monster Girl.
Yeah, Monster Girl. Great.
No, I
She's
like
so
her,
good.
like when she reveals that she is really 24, 25, and turning into a monster.
29, isn't it?
I thought she was like mid 20s.
Mid to late, I think. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, but she straight up says, like, look, this is a curse. I'm cursed to get younger. And how she said she used to go by Monster Woman. And then she's like, now I'm 4 weeks younger. This is great. I was like, that really sucks. So seeing like Robot, like what I said earlier, payoffs. This show does really good on the payoff. Like when Robot is constantly at her sides, like and he keeps going no, because that was completely thought that he was an actual robot. There was no human behind there, and now that he's trying to get Monster Girl to come back alive, it's like, why does he care so much? He's also trapped in his own body.
Yeah, that's a reveal. I was writing a different note. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say it yet, though. Yeah, I think that's a really great reveal when the shriveled up, monstrous thing walks in and can control all these different robots. Especially that giant one was so cool.
Yeah. Again, I find it interesting that this happens because it's not like a spoiler. Like obviously this happens in a show, so it's going to happen in the comic, but it happens so much later in the comic. It makes me wonder if Robert Kirkman was like, "Oh, I shouldn't have made this a 80 issue reveal because maybe it wasn't worth the reveal. So maybe he just wanted to do it now in one season to get it over with." You know what I mean? Because like priorities.
Yeah, totally. Like, but I think also looking at like what are the needs of this season. What are the story beats that this season needs versus what are the story beats 150 issues of a comic needs?
So
you can keep going with the comic, but a show you got to really structure.
Yeah. and what's so fascinating about the show versus the comic is very much it keeps building on how big it gets, whereas the show kind of just opens the door from the get-go. So like the show, obviously, like, like Viltrumite's a thing, so like there might be something with that planet in way in the future. That is something that's way in the future, but it's also something they could do really early on to keep the flow of the show like just heavy at all times. Like they really could do stuff that's like, hey, we're gonna do this war like 6 years earlier than it needs to because it makes sense for the story. And again, for comic fans, like that would be that'd be super interesting. It's so cool to like, because you read something like a I don't know, like a Jupiter's Legacy, and it's like one for one for the comic, for better or worse, and then you read something like this, and it's like it is the comic, but it's not the comic. It's kind of the comic in like a weird time loop. And again, Robert Kirkman's good at this stuff.
So
go ahead.
So like for the show, I only read the first issue. So as the show kept going, like when we first meet Omni-Man, like the first part of the show, and I mean obviously the last 10 minutes of episode 1 say like, yo, he's a bad guy. I was very convinced of like, or not convinced. I was like, why did he do it? Why is he doing it? And he keeps talking about Viltrum. I'm like, okay, there's got to be something wrong with that planet.
Okay,
Something was amiss.
So question, Ben, because like now the jig's up, but like up until the reveal, did you think maybe he was a good guy and he actually did this for good reasons? Did you ever have that in your mind, or was the show basically telling you, no, he's a bad guy? Like what did you think?
Show was telling me that he was a bad guy.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one part where I remember this distinctly. There was one part in the show where I think he's talking to Debbie, saying about why he had to do it. So I thought maybe there is a slim chance that something was out of his control and he did it. But and then he starts getting mad. He punches the wall. I'm like, nope, he's just a bad guy. He's just a bad dude.
Yeah, the show kind of doesn't really like mess around with the fact of whether or not he's a good or a bad guy, but you do kind of hope, because it's also playing with your expectations of watching other superhero properties. And if this is the Superman allegory, then you just kind of hope that like maybe there is an altruistic reason that he had to do this, or he is brainwashed or something. Just kind of hope.
I will tell you what I thought it was. My first instinct thought, when we finished 3 episodes and we did our podcast episode, which is that I thought, and this loosely was based on like vague information that came filtered down and was inaccurate and that kind of thing, and like, or my interpretation was anyway, was that Omni-Man had to be killed by Marc in order for Marc to get his full power.
It's all
in order for him to be as powerful as him. That was like a Viltrumite thing. Like, and once Marc starts showing his powers, that's the only way for him to do it. So I thought it was actually going to be a really sad, like somber thing about how like you have to do this, and he knew Marc wouldn't be able to do it unless he perceived him as a villain.
Oh, okay.
So he killed the Guardians of the Globe, and he was going to be this,
like
so that Marc could be
passage?
the best version of himself. Yeah, it was going to be like a messed up Viltrumite thing, and Marc wouldn't even know that's why he did it until long after he was dead. And I thought that was going to be the story. I was going to be like, wow, it's really screwed up.
Nah, he's a Goku. Nah, he's a Saiyan. This is a Saiyan. You know what's hilarious to me? So Robert Kirkman has made 2 things that are Dragon Ball-esque. He's made this and now Firepower, which is a new comic he has out right now. He says he's never watched Dragon Ball. And I just can't believe this man, because they're so it's just stories, they're similar. It's funny. I just don't believe him.
Going back to the voice cast real quickly, I want to quickly mention Michael Dorn plays their version of Thor.
What a beast.
Michael Dorn, Worf, for you Star Trek The Next Generation fans. I think that's great. That was so cool when I heard that.
Yeah, he's
a big white tiger guy, right?
Yeah.
He's the first person who beat the shit out of Marc, and then you're like, oh no. No.
That guy was cool. Yo, okay, not only that, Titan. I was really hoping Titan was going to turn things around.
Mahershala Ali, yeah.
That was Mahershala Ali?
Yeah.
Yep. Everybody in this, it's a stacked cast.
Jeffrey Donovan is so good as Machine Head.
He's so good.
I love him so much.
I did.
Oh, man.
Okay, so when I was watching these episodes, I watched like 2. I watched one for a night, and then I watched 2 and 2 to finish the season out. And I can tell you that after the Machine Head episode, I was like, I need to watch more. I can't stop tonight. I need to keep going. And then I just watched one more. And then it got right before episode 7. It was like, fuck. And then it was like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. I was like, I gotta go to bed, but I want to watch more.
What's crazy about the show is, like, again, like 45 minutes, like that's a long time, but even then, like, it's so dense. Like, especially episode 7, so much happens in episode 7. That felt like a movie to me. Like, just every minute something new was happening, and the fights were crazy. And like at the end of it, we're just like, I feel like drained. Like, I'm emotionally drained.
We talked a lot about Falcon Winter Soldier. The problem, one of the problems with Falcon Winter Soldier, keeping it Fake Nerds Watch, Falcon Winter Soldier has many episodes where it doesn't really feel like a lot happened in those episodes, and some of the better episodes are when it does. I think Invincible is a really good example of a show that stacks story and just packs its runtime, and I don't feel like it wastes it too much. I could just be having hindsight goggles on. But I personally, at this point, don't feel like it wastes its runtime, and you never once feel like you didn't get as much as you deserved.
I definitely struggled a little bit with that. Sorry, Ben, just because I'm responding specifically to what Brandon said. I definitely struggled a little bit with that with the university episode, just because I felt like in that episode in particular, and because things had already happened in the episodes before, we were just watching Marc constantly run up against the idea of like, you should tell Amber who you are, and just never learn the lesson. And I was like, oh my God, dude, like, develop. just develop. And I get like that was supposed to be part of the character, but it was maybe like one too many interactions with Amber where I was just like, this is just the same conversation.
The time out a little bit.
The same conversation, babe. Like, come on, let's go.
That episode has Ezra Miller and Justin Roiland.
There you go.
A lot of episodes have Ezra Miller because he's
William.
He's his best friend.
Yeah.
Ezra Miller's the evil scientist who makes the machine guys in that university episode.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess I was wrong. Who's William? I'm gonna look at who William is. Okay.
Well, because Ben's been trying to say something. I'll check while Ben says this thing.
So one of the things I really love about the show is that none of the episodes feel fillery. As in every episode has something big going on, and there's multiple things going, and it just makes you want to keep watching and see what the mystery is. I do agree with Sparks how there's a few times where Marc doesn't develop, and he's like, dude, just tell Amber you're invisible. God damn it, hurry the hell up. Because even I was like especially the college episode where he fights the robot for the first time, I'm like, perfect chance, just straight up. Like, you got William staring up and go, oh shit, that's Marc. And be like, yeah, just it's like, just go ahead and tell Amber, and don't try to like hide and run away.
Real quickly, William is played by Andrew Rannells.
Oh, don't know who that is.
Well, now I can go back to being a little less impressed with Ezra Miller because I was like, wow, that's a really good voice for
good.
He was recently in A Simple Favor in that weird musical that Netflix put out last year. The Prom.
Didn't see it. So Ben, you're talking about how like every episode, like it didn't feel like filler. You're 100% right. And what's so great is it didn't feel like filler, but it was also a monster of the week for a couple of those episodes. And what's great is they were monsters of the week, but that's not what really they are. They're actually monsters of the year because they're going to be reoccurring villains that keep showing up throughout the comic book. And again, that's what the end of season 1 did. It's like, oh, what are you going to do for high school or whatever? It's like he's going to deal with the rest of these villains that were set up from the season.
So the Mars episode, really cool. Yeah. But then you get that parasite, and then it's like, oh shit, you see one human as a parasite. He's like, how's that gonna happen? And then nothing else happens. You forget about it, and then you get the season
was in this,
and then you get the season wrap up at the very end, and you're like, oh shit, that's right, Dr. Seismic comes back. You saw him fall into lava, and you're like,
Magma Man.
No, he's not dead. He's got the Magma Men now. Holy shit!
Oh yeah, the Mars episode was really fun. They do one of my favorite things that I've ever seen, and I didn't know I wanted this, but when Marc takes out the sandwich and it's just frozen solid and he can't eat it, I thought that was really funny.
He's just like, I can lunch my ass.
Seismic Man has some of the best like use of that kind of power I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, like the floating.
Yeah, the way that he maneuvers himself is really impressive.
Yeah.
Something I definitely thought would happen, and I was surprised it didn't, was that we didn't see that dude and his stepson in the last episode. Because I was like, oh, they for sure are in the city getting murdered, right?
Yeah. The setup.
If you don't know who I'm talking about the guy from the very beginning of the first episode who's talking about going out with his stepson.
The
and then we see him
guard.
later, and he gets hit with the trash that Marc threw.
Yep.
And he's with his stepson. I thought that dude for sure was going to get murdered in the last episode.
Real quickly, I wanted to, so it took me until last night at about 5 p.m. to realize that that's what fell on the dude. It was the trash that Marc threw at the end of the first episode. I was so confused.
We thought they were going to be a running thing throughout the season.
Me
like
too.
every once in a while, we were going to start an episode checking in on them or something. And I'm like, well, for sure, at least by the end of the season, they're going to get murdered.
Because the kid comes back to dig up Immortal's body.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, that is that kid. Yeah.
That is that kid. But John Hamm, who plays his stepdad, he doesn't come back.
I honestly, like, I thought we were getting buildup about them in increments so that we'd care about them when they were murdered by Omni-Man. So it'd be like that one person who's like a regular person who you see them die, and it's like, see, you even knew that guy, and it's like, oh no. But no.
Man, Seth Rogen's in this. Nicole Byer. Man, this.
Alan the alien. Did you guys notice when he's talking about how Viltrumites destroyed his planet? Like, look, that's so sad. That's a big thing that comes up later. Alan's great. I love Seth Rogen. Guys, we got a winner. We got like the next 100 years of this show. We're gonna be dead by the time it's over. I'm so excited. Viltrumites, they're bad boy Saiyans with mustaches. All the men have mustaches. Why? Because love Miami Vice.
Because Omni-Man is he has a lot of King Vegeta energy.
Yeah, he does.
But he looks like Paragus.
Oh, bro.
Like he looks exactly like Paragus.
Yeah, you're right.
Broly. Sorry. I really love the Clone Brothers.
The Baller
from
Brothers, yeah.
Kevin Michael Richardson's performance is really great. Probably some of my favorite characters out of the whole show, to be honest.
Yeah, I think if I had to choose, man, it's really hard. Like, I don't want to go with like Omnia, but like honestly, Cecil, this guy, like he's like the rated R Nick Fury that I haven't gotten with Sam Jackson. No offense, Sam Jackson. He's so great.
I think Alan the Alien and the brothers bring a lot of some of my favorite stuff from comic books. I'm really glad that the last episode, when they go back into their cells, has the acknowledgement of the guy whose arm they broke, and they're like, sorry, Carl, or whoever it was.
The blonde guy?
And he's like, and they're like,
he's just like staring at them, like, last time you're getting chicken pot pie, you motherfuckers.
Oh, that is Kevin Michael Richardson.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Cecil is my favorite character in the show.
Yeah, Cecil rules, man.
Cecil's great. I there's a lot of characters I love.
They're all great.
There's pretty much only one character who I can't stand, but you're kind of not supposed to. So.
It's Rex.
Oh, it's Rex.
Yeah, Rex. Oh, Rex sucks.
I was about to say it's Rex, right?
Jason Mantzoukas is like the best asshole.
I love Jason
maybe in Hollywood
because he's good at it.
He's so good at being like, he's got the best voice for being a jerk. Like, he's so good. He has so many good podcasts too.
It's so weird watching Jason Mantzoukas voice voice Rex and also do his character in Close Enough.
Close Enough.
Mm-hmm. Is he a jerk in that show?
No, he's not. He's
interesting.
He's not a jerk. He's a bit of a bumbling idiot.
Okay.
Kind of.
He's pretentious.
He never plays a regular dude.
He's not a regular dude.
Yeah, he's not a regular dude. Yeah.
He's a pretentious professor who got shoved out on his ass.
Okay.
Yeah, he is.
Any more thoughts, guys? Like Invincible, eight tremendous episodes. We're probably gonna be waiting like a year and a half for the next one.
If I had the opportunity to rewatch the whole show, like I really desperately want to, before we did this, I probably would have more thoughts. But at the end of the day, it's just anything that I would add would just be to say how much more I love the show.
Right. Yeah. I think we critically hit everything pretty well.
It's like I'm just thinking of that final episode, just like the violence. I made a joke to Sparks. I said Zack Snyder can never make this. He would never make this because he doesn't like he's all about the destruction without any of the actual impact of it. And I'm just thinking, like, if Zack Snyder made an Invincible movie, he would do all the destruction with none of the substance. And I'm like, oh my god, he wishes he could make this.
You open the box, so I'm gonna spew something real quick.
Let me throw my grenade in there.
Don't say anything about Justice League though, because that one's the good one.
No. The ending of Man of Steel. Also, haven't seen Justice League. The ending of Man of Steel wishes it was the show.
It's all I was thinking about. I was like, wow, I care about everything that's happening in this right now. The people that are destroying the city. It's so sad.
I've seen that taken a lot of places where people are saying Invincible proves why the ending of Man of Steel was completely wrong.
I haven't seen that, but like it's what I thought of. Yeah. And when I think of like big destruction, like I don't mind when you do it, but it has to have ramifications. It has to have meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Don't kiss your girlfriend.
I mean, it's the same thing as it's the same thing as like any horror movie where like, you know, you talk about Jaws and it's like, yes, the shark is a killer shark, but it's not just a killer shark. And it's like the violence is violence, but it's not just violence.
It's got the great characters they care about. That's why when the Jaws eats the men, you care about the men. It's a movie.
Ben, you wanted to say something. I apologize.
I
had to throw my grenade.
I know. I love how the show commits to the bit. Every time every time when Invincible introduces himself, or the first time they say Invincible, they always come out to the title card. And I love how more blood gets splattered on the title card.
No matter how long it takes, the first time they say Invincible is always the title card. I love that. And
even if it's like 40 minutes in.
The blood splatter was always so. The last episode is the most blood splatter, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, because you know there was gonna be some death, and there was a lot of death.
So, are they gonna continue it from here, or are they gonna do a new card with different blood?
So the Invincible, I don't know for a fact, but the Invincible Twitter page posted
I showed them,
the image of the new Guardians
cleaning it up. Yeah,
I would imagine that is a cue up to say that they're gonna wipe the slate clean and then throw more blood on it.
Make it alien blood, green blood.
Maybe.
Yeah. I don't think it'll just be blood again. Yeah. I don't think they'll do the same thing again. It'll be something different.
Again, not to talk too much about the comics in the future, but I think one of the reasons again that they're doing so much of the Earth story stuff from the future of the comics now is because they're going to slowly build to just the space stuff instead of focusing so much on the Earth stuff. Because like once you get to the stuff, guys, that it becomes Dragon Ball Super, like once you get to that shit, I'm not joking.
No, I know.
It gets crazy. Once it gets there, you can't go back to just Marc on Earth. Like it's not, you just can't go back to it. So I think they're doing that where they're going to get
always Dragon Ball GT's biggest mistake.
That's why we don't talk about that anymore. I think they're going to get rid of not get rid of it. They're going to do all the good Earth stuff. So then when they do the space stuff, they can just focus on it and they don't have to we have to go back to Earth to deal with this Amber plotline or something. Like they're just going to no, we're going to Invincible Super now. That's where we're at. So excited.
I do think we potentially with how the show is and how the show is structured this season, using that as kind of a jumping, as kind of a springboard for my thoughts here, and what I've read and what you've said and what I've seen on the internet. I think that by the end of season 2 will probably we're still doing Earth stuff, but by the end of season 2 and into season 3, I think we're out there. We're getting ready for the Viltrumite War.
I think 2 and 3 is wrapping up everything that we've set up, and then 3 it's no, this is the new show now. This is the status quo that the comic turns into.
Yeah, and I think the benefit of Invincible, I don't know if Robert Kirkman is still a creative voice on the Walking Dead TV series. I would imagine that he is, but I think that the Walking Dead TV series, it is the prime example for why Invincible shouldn't go that long. I think Invincible should go only as long as it needs to. Whether it's 5, whether it's 10, you know what? If you want to do 15, I'm here for it. But if you don't need 15, don't do 15 just because Walking Dead did.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't think they would.
Like The Walking Dead, there is enough material to do that much.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, I think Invincible is a better comic, and it just has so much more to mine from because it's a universe about superheroes and gods instead of just a bunch of people dealing with zombies. And again, that's not me being reductive. It's they're just the potential for Invincible is so much more. And just it can always get bigger. Whereas The Walking Dead, it's always going to be people and zombies. You're never going to get away from that. Whereas with the Invincible in season 3, it's unrecognizable.
I still want to watch that New World Order.
The
or whatever it
universe,
is.
Walking Dead, like the one with
Whatever
the
it
future,
is.
right?
Yeah,
With
yeah.
the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
I liked The
100%.
Walking Dead a lot one time.
I mean, it sold me enough on the fact that like it's a limited series. It's not an open
Oh,
series.
yeah,
So
okay.
I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna jump in and watch that at some point because that
Yeah.
sounds like the most interesting Walking Dead concept that I've ever heard.
And it looked visual.
Look, and the other thing is like, you know, Walking Dead, even in its premise as a comic book to a show, is kind of like you're working with a material that flat out the goal is to be never ending.
Yeah.
You know, it's supposed to be the zombie movie.
It's just
that
a
doesn't
long
end.
drama.
And so like that is the thing you're fighting with, whereas Invincible has trajectory and everything. And I think as long as they're playing in that space, they'll be fine.
Mhm.
In a sense, Walking Dead, even as the show took over from the comic, becomes so open-ended that like you don't have to obey those rules. Invincible still has to obey certain rules for its story framing.
Yeah.
Even if they decide to vamp out or they decide, well, we'll tell the story, but we're going to do a spinoff exploring like these other characters or something, you know, I'm sure they can handle it.
Oh yeah.
And you can definitely do spin-offs because as Ryan said, there were many spin-offs to Invincible. The comic book was very popular for a time.
Yeah, I find that far more likely that like you'll get like an Invincible anthology or something on the side than that they'll overdo the length of the main show.
Yeah. There was a comic called Invincible Universe, which was literally like that. It's just like it features different characters from the universe.
Yeah.
I remember when Invincible came to an end. I was working at the comic book store at the time when it finally did, and I think it ends at 150.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
He likes that number.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Good.
All right. Well, anything else you guys want to add?
I think the show's great. I mean, just I want it now, but it takes time to animate great. So take your time, but I want it now. I gotta see the comic again, I guess. But
if they go by the same logic that we've seen, generally by the time we hear about a renewal, they're already animating. That could be the case here. I don't know if I don't know for sure.
The reason I think we have longer to go is that season 2's renewal came at the end of the season as an announcement. Amazon has not been gun shy about announcing something the premiere week if they are doing it. So I think that there is a good chance that they were waiting to see how successful and resonant this would really be, because in a sense, animation is like there is a different kind of expense to it in time and allocation of stuff. And so like they don't want to put like any money into it if they're not going to finish it, because basically like there is no value in starting to animate a show you're not going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
There is some value in like having started pre-production on a show you haven't necessarily filmed the new season of. So it will probably that, but because they announced both of them together, I suspect that we're looking at like a more continuous release afterwards. There might be a gap waiting for season 2, but season 3 will probably be very soon
like
after. Season 4 would be soon
like a
after
Rick and
that.
Morty. Like
Yes.
they got like 70 episode order, and it took us a while to finally get here.
It's so interesting, Amazon's trajectory. They tried so hard to get into prestige TV for so long. They had Hannah High Castle airing for far longer than a lot of people realized. They tried Tick, and then like just nothing hit. They had to remind people that, hey, you have TV on here too. If you have Amazon Prime, you got TV. There were ads, and that now finally The Boys and Invincible are just like, oh yeah, Amazon TV, man, I'm there every Friday.
And like, not, I hate to be like cynical, but like, is it because it's superhero stuff? Like it's dealing with superheroes? But the thing is, The Boys and the Invincible are excellent. Their quality is top tier, but it's also superhero stuff.
I would only push back because The Tick is also a superhero show.
Yeah.
So,
The Boys very clearly when it marketed. Look, I think Invincible's success on Amazon is partially tied to the success of The Boys on Amazon.
Yeah,
because Invincible did make it clear on some level that there would be violence, not necessarily how much there would be, but that there would be.
Yeah,
that it was going to be a more mature animated show.
Point.
And then The Boys appealed to a market that said we've had a lot of superhero saturation. This isn't like any of the rest of those products, and was correct. This is not like the rest of those. This is a dissection on the superhero idea, and it's effective and it worked. I don't think Invincible would have had the same immediate reception on Amazon without The Boys having already set a precedent for it. Nor do I think Amazon would have had the faith in making it without the success of The Boys.
100%. I agree with that. Yeah.
So those things kind of go hand in hand. But I do think that helped. I also think that Invincible made for great meme work, which is what helps get it elevated. Honestly, what the thing is that nobody like it's very much a Fall Guys scenario where some people posted about the last 10 minutes of the first episode, which was probably the smartest thing they could have done for the show, is the first episode ended that way. So you were hooked by the end of the first episode because of that concept. And that scene got shared around all over the internet. So people who weren't watching the show started watching the show because of that. Travis, our friend Travis, started watching the show because somebody shared that scene. And he's like, oh, what? That's the show?
Multiple of my coworkers were like, I straight up thought it was like a Disney Channel show.
It's one of those things where a spoiler, in many ways, like what would be considered a spoiler, that's helped sell this show.
Yeah.
Because it was a thing that happened at the end of the first episode, and people knowing that brought them to the show. I know multiple people who did that because that got shared around.
Yeah. Good thing that was at the end of the episode, at the first episode. Though.
Yeah.
So my roommate pretty much binged the entire season earlier today. And I was talking, and I came downstairs to make my lunch, and I saw him. He was watching. I was like, "Oh, how are you enjoying it?" And he was like, "Dude, this is great." I was like, "Yeah." So, what'd you think of that first episode? He's like, "Yeah," because one of his friends told him, "Was like, hey, the first episode's really bloody." Whole thing goes by, not a lot of blood. He's like, "Yeah, no, it's not." Then the 10 minutes happen, and he's like, "Never mind. Yes, it is."
Man, there's an alternate reality world where Invincible was made first. And it was just like the comic where it took its time to get to Nolan and people lost interest. And then like season 2, everyone like came back. And then like The Walking Dead 10 years later is actually the incredible thing that's like subverting expectations. And I'm like, I'm so glad it wasn't that. I'm so glad Invincible is here now.
Yeah,
oh, man.
Absolutely. I think that like it was a wisely calculated decision to put Nolan taking on the Guardians at the end of that first episode. I think that was a major reason why
100%.
the show grabbed the audience it did as fast as it did.
This is a good example of a lot of things. A drinking game. This is a good example of the fact that like so many perfect pieces had to fall in place for us to finally get to this show. You know, learning our lessons from different adaptations. Robert Kirkman learning his lessons. The Boys happening even before that. What happened for the Boys to happen? The fact that this show is here is a testament to everything that has come before it.
Yeah.
Right. And then just the superhero market in general being successful to open the door to them even being interested in these things.
Yeah.
Was a major part of it too. So yeah,
absolutely. Thanks to Seth Rogen too, because he was the dude who's like been wanting to get it made, like the movie and stuff, and then like the TV show happened, and I'm like,
and him championing comic book adaptations, like Preacher,
dude. Yeah, and Preacher rules, and like that dude's also like an up and coming like super producer of things, where like everything he touches that's comic book related is gold.
It was always so funny that it was always funny to me that he's the voice of Alan the Alien in this one, but he's the producer on the movie and he has no creative voice in the show.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out.
Yeah.
Again, that movie, man, who knows what, because it's still happening. We just don't know what it is. But yeah, show's great. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Brandon, you want to take us out?
All right, let's do it. Okay, so if you are watching this, we probably have just done our episode on Jupiter's Legacy, another comic book adaptation on Netflix. 1 to 3 episodes, what we decided on versus the comic book, the first volume of the comic book. Now, I did just find out that they've republished the comic book to have Jupiter's Circle be volume 1 of Jupiter's Legacy. We are just talking about Jupiter's Legacy.
Okay. Oh my God, that makes me so mad because I was always mad about that comic because it was the prequel and it was something. Oh, that's so dumb. That is so dumb.
The reprints of Jupiter's Legacy are Jupiter's Circle. Jupiter's Legacy Volume 1 is Volume 3.
That's the That's so dumb. Marc Millar, what are you doing?
Anyway, we were talking about Jupiter's Legacy, which was the original Volume 1 of Jupiter's Legacy. Frank Quietly, Marc Millar. So check that out. But we got a bunch of news, and then we got a book club coming the next time. Our Fake Nerds Watch series is kind of on hold now. I don't really think there's any more Fake Nerds Watches coming until Loki.
Until next month?
June.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. But you can check out our other stuff. We talked about a little bit about Falcon and Winter Soldier here. Check out Falcon and Winter Soldier. We did all 6 episodes there. WandaVision. There's Basement Arcade, which is our Let's Play show. If you subscribe to this channel, you get access to a lot of that stuff. Well, you get access anyway, but please subscribe.
I was gonna say we don't have subscription lock content.
But subscribe anyway. So Basement Arcade and Basement Arcade pause menu. Ben, you just recorded a new Basement Arcade pause menu. I hear.
I most certainly did. Did you want
anything
me to talk more, or
you want to give us anything?
Yeah. It was me and my buddy, the top loader from Australia. He and I talked for about an hour and 40 minutes about video game collections and our woes collecting video games and getting rid of games. Because I just now realized that I don't have Pokemon Diamond anymore. I thought I still had it. I sold it years ago, apparently.
Oh no!
Yeah.
What?
Pokemon Diamond. I thought I had Diamond.
Oh no! If only they were making a new version on the Switch.
Oh no! Oh wait.
So stay tuned for that. That episode will drop probably sometime this week, or next week, or whenever. And then of course there is. By the way, Ben, you've worn that shirt for every Basement Arcade pause menu episode. I just realized.
Seriously?
Yes.
Hell yeah!
What?
Yeah, girl.
Yeah, I just realized.
Ben definitely thinks every day I'm recording a pause menu today. What's my most video game shirt? The Game Boy one. Solid, Ben. Solid.
I mean, I do pick a video game shirt for Basement Arcade pause menu, but I was like, but I didn't think it was the same one.
I don't know.
And of course, we have our FakeNerd Book Club series. We just finished Little Char and the Gang. New cycle coming soon. Stay tuned. We'll definitely figure out when we can do the first volume of our next book, Gotham Academy. And then I've got Conversation. New episodes go up Thursday. And that's all we got going on. That's an audio show, by the way, for all you video listeners, watchers. Yep. It's past 12.
Not true.
Past 1.
I suspect Brandon and I will be releasing a new show on YouTube by the end of the month.
Oh, look at that!
Really now?
Well, there's a certain special coming out by the end of the month, and you and I have 2 other specials we want to talk about related to it. So
man, yeah, I forgot that was coming out this month.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, stay tuned for that. We might be coming up with some more shit. I love doing shit.
Love shit.
Shit's tight. Watching a lot of that. Stay tuned for all that good stuff. Like this video, subscribe to our channel. Find us on all the social medias at FakeNerd Podcast, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, FakeNerdGuys@gmail.com, FakeNerd Podcast on our website, FakeNerdPodcast.com. I'm at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. Ben,
you can find me at BenMagnet27 on Instagram and Twitter.
Sparks.
You can find me sharing all the think vines and gifs and memes on Twitter and Instagram at SparksWitty on both of those SPARKZ Witty.
I wish Vine was back.
Yeah.
Hey, you can find me at DJ Tony Snark everywhere.
And until next time we see us, guys, stay fake nerds.
Think.